So corresponding secretary is a twofold thing according to LFRW. They have attached to corresponding secretary, if you're elected corresponding secretary, you are now the corresponding secretary, which sends out sympathy letters and any thank you notes or whatever. You do some correspondence for the president if she so directs, but you are also the editor of the newsletter Elephant Times, and that is part of corresponding secretary duties. They then attach webmaster, which is a totally different thing, but now because social media and because LFRW has a website, it's all underneath the title corresponding secretary webmaster for LFRW. Most of you, the smaller clubs, the bigger clubs in the federation, you have a corresponding secretary who will send out thank you notes, blah, 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 corresponding letters, so forth. A lot of those corresponding secretaries with the small clubs are not newspaper editors. They do not compile the newsletter. They do not send out the newsletter, but they can be. Say, for instance, your club has a corresponding secretary, but you can't find anyone to take over as newsletter. You can have that corresponding secretary because she is your communication director, totally. And that involves everything, social media, newsletter, and correspondence. So that's an option for small clubs that don't have a lot of members. And we have a lot of those. Recording secretary, Robbie has a PowerPoint, and I gave you a list and for your packet. And this is what I recommend because these are the questions when I was corresponding secretary that the clubs called me the most on. I don't know why, but they called me for all of these questions. Where is the copy of my club charter? Every club should have their own club charter. It's issued by NFRW. It gives you the date the club was started. It gives you a nice copy. You can make a copy of it, and I use these sheet protectors. You can put your charter in, and I would recommend you do that every year. If you're a recording secretary, put the charter in here, make a copy of it. Don't let just it be the president's responsibility. Say, for instance, her house floods. Sister over there, did your house ever flood and you had stuff stacked around? But it may.
Yeah.
But your recording secretary would have all the minutes, she would have the charter, and she would have all of the forms that a president would normally have in her binder, which is a proxy form. You're gonna go to a meeting and somebody can't show up and you're gonna need somebody to step in for you. You need a proxy form. You're going to need a membership form. You can edit this form day in, day out. You can have it on your computer, or you can have a paper copy and type it up again if you want to. But it's important for you to have that membership form as a backup so you know if you lose all your records, where are you going to start? That's one of the things you need to have. You need to keep the reports as a recording secretary, what your treasurer gives you, and in my case, what the 7 VPs give me. That we know then that I have it and Gina has it in case one of us, something happens to our records. That is always good to have a backup. I like using, as she does also, digital, USB and a CD, and I carry LFRWs around. You need one or the other, but, and I can't say this often enough, you need a backup to your both of these things. Say, for instance, I have everything on here and I give it to Joanne for her to download on her computer. And that day, Joanne has a virus. and it will corrupt everything I have. So make sure you have a backup of your backup, if you want to call it that. And I keep a paper copy and I keep digital. So that is always a good thing to have. The other thing is, and I can't stress this enough, have your club bylaws in every yearly binder. Your club bylaws, LFRW's bylaws, NFRW bylaws. They all meld together. They're great cross-references, and they're easy to get to if you don't have to go, like, she just handed over to me when I took over in March, recording secretary. LFRW files go back to 1953. Say, for instance, nobody had put charter except in 1953, and one of ours, unfortunately, got flooded, and she lost records because her house roof went off with no records left behind. So you have to have a backup to your backup. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. And another thing is your standing rules. Some clubs change their standing rules every year because something happens in the club, you want to update, you're not sure about this, where your meeting is changed, when you meet changes. But it's always a good idea to have your standing rules and a copy in that yearly binder. So that, again, that's a reference. If you have to start from scratch, at least you have a copy, digital or paper. Okay, your membership totals and your name of your members. At the end of the year, make a copy of the spreadsheet that your treasurer or your membership chair sends to you. That way, you can use it as a recruiting tool because you have old members who didn't rejoin. Just call them up and ask them why not. And or you can follow up with new members if you call a renewing member and says, oh, I can't join this year because blah, 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 but I know blah, blah, blah who would love to join the club. So it's a good recruiting tool. So keep that in your recording secretary. And again, the membership chair is going to have a binder, the president has a binder, and you may be duplicating, but that's a good thing. Okay, the next one is your newsletter. We use ARW. I am from Acadiana Republican Women Lafayette, in case anybody didn't know that. Okay, and we use our newsletter a lot because we use it. If you go to an executive meeting and you want to discuss anything and nobody can remember when you did it. When did we go to that school? What did we do at that school? Your newsletter, if it's a good newsletter, will have it in there. That's great for your awards because you have all of your newsletters in your recording secretary. You can flip through them and you can help the award chairman that you have catching up on what you did, when you did it, how you did it. So that's a good tool to have in this also. And I think if you use these three hole binders, and I have found, much to my dismay, I only used one that had 2 holes, and I kind of overloaded it, and the pages started pulling away, and it's a mess. Use the 3-hole because it's sturdier, it's heavier, and it will take a lot of these. And I practiced last night, and you can put 10 pages in here. So you could have only 12 of these in your binder for every month, and everything will go in it. Or you can do what I've done in another book is I put all my minutes, everything that went in on that month, and then I separated the binder and had all my newsletters in one stack, and I had all my treasuries reports in another, because again, we had like, Helen would ask me a question, or I needed to ask her a question. I could go directly to my treasury, and I didn't have to look all 12 months. I could just flip months. And I think that's But that's all personal, you know, once you start doing this and putting a book together, you kind of figure out what's most important for your club. Any questions?
That's good.
Okay then.
I do have one other question, and I'm asked this for our recording secretary. In recording minutes at meetings, I've come across other organizations do it different ways.
Yeah.
I have seen one that actually uses a method of like an Excel kind of thing or Word, where she sets it up like knowing the agenda of the meeting.
Uh-huh.
And then as you're going through the meeting, she's filling in, and it's
I do
quick.
that.
Like if you use like a little laptop like that, it's very efficient for.
It is, and it
doing your-
reminds you what's on the
Yeah.
agenda, and
And-
then you can, I put mine here, then I leave a big blank, and then I go
Mhm.
down, yeah,
Mhm.
that's very easy.
And then I think another thing that I've seen them do is if there's anything that people are needing to have done before the next meeting, she's able to, send that out to everybody where it's kind of like gives them responsibility to do that action before the next meeting.
Yeah, and it's very easy to cut and paste if you have it all separated from, what you're writing down. So, yeah, I agree. That's a very good way of doing it. And I have found, with going through LFRW, because now I'm now in 1967, I think. you have, people do it,
Mhm.
every kind of
Different
way they
ways.
can think of. And none of it is wrong.
Right.
It's just, you have to have the basics in there. You have to know this meeting occurred, and I couldn't believe this when I went through one of them, that they didn't have the year. And I'm going, and it was odd, it had pulled apart from the binder,
no.
and I had to literally go through the year before and the year after to find out
To
where
make
that
sense.
page belonged.
Right.
So yeah, simple things like that can screw up the whole year. So put the year, put the month, put the date, put where you're meeting, put who was president, because a lot of
Present,
times you see they don't put the president. And the only thing that I think LFRW, NFRW, when you have a motion, you want to pass a motion, and she says,
So move, I move that
First.
we do X, Y, Z.
She made the motion, somebody seconded.
but
That
you
makes-
don't have to write down the second.
Right.
You only have to do what she said and what the motion was. And again, you'll find some other people say, no, you need that second name, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So it all depends. But I agree, if you have some good ideas, pass them on to anything for recording secretaries or corresponding secretary that makes it faster, easier, and that you can keep. This is great for storage because you don't need, I have 2 big boxes right now. You don't need boxes. But again, you have corruption on viruses, and you have technology that's just leaping so far ahead that this may be outdated in 2 years. You never know. So take that all into consideration. I'm done.
Okay, our last segment, we're gonna turn over to LFRW Treasurer, Ms. Heidi